Okay, welcome to the January 2nd, 2018 meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. I'm sorry, those of you who are waiting, we held up. We thought we could do non-public in 15 minutes and it took 30. So what's new, right?
Ricky talking too much again?
Yeah, typical.
If you could please stand, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to start by thanking our highway department for giving up their holidays to keep us cleared out in this frozen weather. You know, they spent a good share of Christmas Day out on the road, and granted, they're paid for it, but giving up Christmas Day with the kids, well, they did, and we appreciate it. Department head items, committee items. Anything that's not budget related that Sean, you have? Okay, is there any Parks and Rec, anything that's not?
No, I asked her to come in for the, we had a discussion about warrant articles last time, and there was discussion about Parks and Rec, and I know Benji and Chief Vizina were here, and Sean and Karen were not, so I asked them to come back so that you could specifically, if you had any further questions before we moved on either one of their articles. Karen has a time frame.
Okay, so we'll let Karen go first. And
I just, very minor changes, just the three of you. And then I have a few left, 1, 2, 3. I can make more, there's 6 of them there. They're still in very draft form.
so let's,
I'm sorry I didn't number the pages, but the article that you discussed for Karen's benefit is on the 3rd page at the top of the Bolton Field Pavilions. It's too bad there's only 3 of you here, but there was some discussion about that.
correct me if I'm wrong, board members, but the discussion wasn't so much about do we or do we not need the pavilions, or should we not have them. It's a concern about each year trying for something different and maybe losing the possibility of momentum that you might get by sticking with the same thing each year, even though it's been defeated. Repackage it maybe in some way or whatever to try to get that through before moving on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, and I don't know if we discussed it as a board, but I thought about it a number of times, and Naomi and I talked about it. There was a report, a long-range plan for Bolton Field done, and that's been quite a few years now since that was done. Mm-hmm. And it's too bad that over the years, not just you, but your predecessors haven't each time taken a piece of that and say, oh, this is part of the big plan. Let's go with it, people. So that's my thinking. And I think that I represented the board's thinking with the first piece about moving from item to item.
Yeah, and I do kind of have a response for that. And I know before I came on board, at least one year, they had looked at the master plan for Bolton and put something together. And then the first year I was on, we presented it again. It was 3 years in a row that we presented the same thing. And we take the feedback from the CIP committee on whether they think things are getting stale. And we do look at the master plan, and this particular project that we're doing is part of that master plan, just a little further down the road than we had anticipated. The road drainage over there was part of the proposal for that 3-year period, plus, additional parking over there. And, we get the feedback from the CIP committee that, maybe you should look at other projects that might be more appealing to residents. The project for the road drainage, the parking lot, they kind of go hand in hand. We don't want to do like the parking lot and not have the drainage set, and that's a big project. That was a lot of money. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, a little over $1 million that we were looking at for the whole thing, and again, the CIP committee lets us know, you've tried this a few times, maybe you should look at something else that's not going through. And we don't want to submit, 3 or 4 packages for, to look at and not have any of them go through. And, I don't know how to move forward with, we don't want to keep just asking for the same amount year after year after year, and, not look like we don't have anything else going on,
Now, you said the pavilions are part of the master plan for that?
Yeah, there's like shade structures are set up down there, like especially the one on the playground side of things. We had talked about it. I'm pretty sure that was part of the plan, just we hadn't gotten there yet. So we set aside, like last year, we set aside the Bolton project and did the Chase Park project, which people seem to like. And this year we came back to Bolton to see what we could figure out down there. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that we want to do down there. But
Might be, again, please, anybody else, please, Chair Tom, be quiet. But it's good to know that pavilion piece was part of that. Just looking ahead to the future, maybe the discussion of how the whole issue of parking and drainage could be broken into
pieces.
And
Yeah,
something that's, just when you're talking $1 million, it took us, I don't know, 4 tries and probably 8 years to get that highway garage in. So it's a difficult call here altogether. So I don't know, maybe it's not even possible to do it in pieces, but I think the discussion should be had.
Sure. Yeah.
As far as whether or not that would be feasible.
Right. And like I said, we get feedback from the CIP committee that it's not such a great idea to go forward with it again, and we just look for things that might be more appealing to, the town.
I think the concern too was mentioned, I think there were a couple of things from the last meeting was, the parking situation. I mean, whenever there's games.
It's awful.
It is, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Rescue vehicles getting in and
Right.
out or anything like that.
Right, and that was the
those get-
concern, and, we submitted pictures, we had gone down there taking pictures when a football game was going on,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
there's this much space to
Oh,
go
yeah.
down with one, it's hard enough to fit in one vehicle down, never mind
been too
two.
many of them.
Yeah, and I know that 2 years I've been on the board, we did submit that for consideration, and they did 1 year prior to me, and then the CIP committee was, again, we just wasn't going anywhere, and we felt like we were beating a dead horse and put something else before the town to consider. But, I mean, we can submit as many proposals, I guess, as we want, but then our concern is, well, that particular one, since we put it before so many times, isn't going to stick, and then it won't end up on the ballot,
Yeah, I think the reason I kind of perked a concern to it was the fact that last year safety was mentioned on the ramp, and the year before that safety was mentioned, and now here we are with no safety at all, just pavilions. And that, I think that not so much the major the big plan like Tom spoke of, but more so of what happened to these.
We
concerns.
did come to CIP with the boat ramp again, and they weren't thrilled with it.
Okay.
So that's, we can't do the whole boat ramp. We need the plans first.
Right.
And we came to CIP with that again this year, and they didn't like that idea. So we didn't
Right,
see
and-
it. I
and
don't know if
it's-
there's a question about the numbers I'm gathering to
No.
get the the information. You know, I'm doing all the research and
Right, no,
talking to people.
and
so-
nobody said you're not doing
Yeah,
your
yeah.
due diligence.
But again, do we submit 3 proposals and then
Yeah,
end up with?
Right, I just, again, the projects were kind of,
We're all over the place.
we're kind of a moot point
yeah.
concerning more so of, there was a safety concern, there was a safety concern, here we are in going for 18 with no safety concerns going to the ballot. And that was my, just my question, I guess, more so than,
Right.
and statement. more
Yeah,
than
and with the
anything.
boat ramp, it was 2 years that we went
Right.
before them, and we
Yeah.
get it's a little frustrating.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we went 4 years for a fire truck.
Yeah.
Same thing. Year after year after year, getting
Right.
defeated, and then it stuck finally.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if that's your recommendation, that we just keep putting the same things
to
forward.
me, if it's a safety concern, I would say yes. That my own opinion, especially with like Bolton Field, that's a very active. Not to say that Chase Park isn't too, but
No.
Bolton Field is a very
Yeah.
active
Kids running around all
vehicular
over the place
area.
and- right.
With a lot of exposure. To me, it's almost more exposure than Chase Park once you get, because everybody's kind of on the beach and on the hill.
Right.
Anything moving around the parking lot is, not as much exposure as down there where everybody's running around and
Right.
in and out of vehicles. So
Yeah.
that was my only concern with like I said, this particular article. That's all.
This, yeah, I'm sure this came up probably in discussions with CIP. We found it difficult to pass planning money,
I know.
which is kind
Across
of
the board.
like,
Yeah.
Any department.
The highway garage is an example. We had an article the year before this design bill was approved for 25,000 for planning money for that, which according to the Keith, who was on the board at the time, really wouldn't have been enough to do total architectural plans, but at least it would have gotten us to a closer design, so we'd have a better handle on what we were putting on for a warrant article, and that was defeated.
Mhm.
And, I don't have, off the top of my head, other examples, but it's been pretty consistent. It's been difficult to pass
Just plans.
planning. So,
Our problem with that is we can't get someone to come give us a quote on,
yeah.
The work
making a
is-
new one
until you
without
have
having
plans.
the plans,
Yeah.
right? And that's the problem that we run into. I mean, I can, I've got a pretty solid figure on how much the entire package will cost, based on talking to the engineer, talking to the state, and what they, get for information. But to get the whole thing done for the $100-some-odd thousand it's going to cost for a boat ramp that not everybody uses,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
another
difficult
issue
feat.
that you have.
Yeah,
Because it's certainly a minority of the town that use it.
right,
Like the tennis courts.
right.
It's difficult to get something like that passed. Anyways, right now it's just talk, because you're looking at the future. How do you package things? How do you
Right.
get something done in the future? And, I guess, gotta be as specific as possible for one thing.
Mhm.
And start the process early and hang in there.
Yeah. I mean, the package deal, and that's what we were doing, kind of the parking and the drainage hand in hand for the Bolton. While you're digging up one thing, you might as well be digging up another thing to, But yeah, if we need to pare it down even more than where we're at, instead of bouncing around all over the place. But I mean, if that's a recommendation, we can look at submitting,
Yeah.
a few projects
That'd be
each.
good to just sit down with a couple of members of the CIP before the process even starts and talk about that, or a couple of members of the committee, not just yourself, the Parks and Rec committee. And I don't know. Again, it's all talk right now.
Sure.
What we got in front of us here is the proposal for this year, and that is your proposal for this year. But I think these other things should just be in the back of your mind and the Parks and Recs Commission
Sure.
as you move forward, because, recreation in today's world is important.
Absolutely.
Look at
We
the
agree.
issues that are facing childhood health. It's important.
Yeah, no, the Bolton facility is a great facility, and it's just, we've outgrown it.
Mm-hmm.
We need we need additional space down there for people to come in and park and enjoy it. You know, it's just
Questions or
So now, when
comments?
you worked with the state, what did they do for you for the grant?
fishing game.
Oh.
Pretty much nothing.
Nothing?
No,
Okay.
they gave me, you know, a few engineers to contact,
Okay.
because they do all their own work Fish and Game. They are the boat ramp people. They get the plans made, and then their guys go and do it. You know, so we don't have that luxury down here for that. So we would have to hire an individual contractor. We've contacted a couple of contractors who more than happy to give us a number, but have nothing to reference.
Well, I don't want Karen to walk away not knowing whether or not we're gonna support this. I don't think that would be fair. Unfortunately, we only have 3 members here, but.
Yeah, I think you guys are a little short staffed tonight. It looks
Yeah,
like.
we are. With, one was out of town and one who had a health issue, so. We've often gone with the opinion that we should let the voters decide.
Mhm.
And I personally would stick with that approach here and not take it off the ballot, but to, you know, let the voters decide.
Yep, I'm one of the proponents that stood at that side of the table and said that, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna,
Yeah, I mean, it's our
That's it.
burden to get out, you know, get out the word and,
Right.
and get people there to
Right.
vote for
It's
it,
a people's
you know, as
decision.
opposed to,
So we have a consensus that this will remain on the ballot, and the other thing is it going to be well, if we put it on the ballot, it's a recommendation. It's kind of foolish for this board to
Right.
put something on the warrant and then not support it.
Right.
Uh, And then again, do everything you can as a committee to,
push it.
yep, get it out there. Great.
any questions? Anything?
No, I'll bring your points to our meeting next week and see what, you know, see what we can do. Okay,
Thank you, Karen.
perfect. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year, everybody.
Same to you.
Nice job.
Do you want to do, I know Sean was here, well, not here, but we received word from Sean, he wanted to hold the cruisers and the additional officer for a discussion,
Right.
but again, there's 3 of you. I mean, he's here to supply us information, or,
Well, the bind that we're in here is that we meet with the finance committee
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So I think that, you know, we should do everything possible tonight to
Absolutely.
know what we're going forward with.
Mhm.
So, there was a discussion, as you're aware, of 1 police cruiser versus 2. And, so I guess what we need is, and I know you've already done it, but another explanation of the need for 2 at this time.
Okay. Tom, if the cars that we've got that are not, we have the 3 new cars that we received in, that came online in September and October. The 3rd one almost November. The problem is the remaining cars. What I'm fearful of is that these cars that have already contributed to $250,000 worth of car repairs over the last 10 years are sliding down that slope again. And if we put off buying new cars again till 2019, we're going to be throwing worse money after bad money on those cars that need to be replaced. They needed to be replaced 3 years ago. I didn't make my recommendation 3 years ago lightly. I certainly didn't make them last year, and again, I won't again next year. I'm of the frame of mind that I'm not going to come to you and ask you for monies we don't need. I'm acutely aware of the fiscal responsibility that you have asked me to take on, and my best recommendation, and that's what it is. It's a recommendation. It's frankly just an educated guess that if we don't do 2 cars, we're gonna regret it in the end. We're gonna be going down a road where we're back to all garbage, with the exception of the 3 that we've got, the 3 new ones that we got this year.
Rick, you had some opinions last time?
Are we not using the 2013 Explorer as a frontline piece? Because we basically said we only have 3 cars that we use.
The three new cars I was referring to.
Right.
The Explorer. I don't have an exact number for you, but it's getting advanced in its age. It's if I remember right, it's well over 130,000 miles, and it's destined to be a backup car. It's just simply to the point now where it's been recalled a number of times for defects by Ford. It's in tough shape. I shouldn't say that. That's overly dramatic. It is not in tough shape. But if we wait another year to push it back so that it's now a backup car, it's not going to be a backup car. It's going to have to be replaced right away. That's where we are at this point with the cars that are behind the 13 Explorer. They are in desperate need for replacement, and if we delay replacing them for another year, that pushes the 13 to the point where it's going to have to be replaced immediately as well. And that's my goal, if there is such a thing in this regard, is to level off our spending on the fleet, so that we're not suffering these enormous spikes in spending on repairs of cars that $60,000 last year. That's too much. That's just too much to spend on repairs.
I agree. It's too much. I guess my other concern is that I was over there on other business yesterday, and there's still snow on one of the cruisers. I mean, we only have, per CBA, we have two members on at all times, except for the 3 to 7 hour. I mean, I understand the need for reserve vehicles if one goes down, and we experienced that last year with vehicles going down every left and right. I guess I just want to make sure that this, not to say that the 2 Crown Vics aren't tired. I know they're exhausted. They're on borrowed time. I want to make sure that they're being cycled through, used equally, because I don't want to see us in 2023 going for 3 more or 5 more cruisers all at once. I'd rather spread it out myself and say, all right, 1 this year, replace the worst of the 3, replace the next one, and get in a 1-year rotation, 1 each year, rather than come up and say 3-2, 3-2, 3-2.
Well,
I hate to say that.
That's exactly the tactic I'm taking here, Rick. Is that if we do 2 this year, then we start with 1 next year, and we do 1 forevermore. With the exception of those rare instances, and I hope is rare instances where something occurs and we have to buy 2. Again, I want to get to that point where we plateau and we are now spending less money on cars because we're turning cars in that may have trade value left. Right now, the cars that we got rid of, we got record value for them, and that doesn't help us at all.
The other thing, if we stick with the same vehicle, the equipment should be transferable in the future.
Right, until Dodge changes their fleet design.
Right.
But right now, I haven't seen anything in the industry magazines about Dodge talking about changing their fleet design. But every manufacturer does every once in a while.
think I'm repeating myself from the last meeting, but 2 years ago, the board at the time, I know there was different makeup to it, supported an article for 5 vehicles. And felt that the need at that time was to get rid of 5 of those older cars and move on and replace the fleet. It didn't pass the voters. So this last year, the chief took a portion of that, 3 vehicles, and came forward with a warrant article, knowing that we were still gonna have some junkers over there. So I, as one member of the board, feel we ought to move ahead with the 2 cruisers. We have 5 basically new frontline vehicles. And, you know, our goal should be to stick as close to that number as possible, knowing that we might have some special purpose vehicles that we need to hang on to, but to, you know, that 5, to keep our mileage on them low over the years, increase the trade value, and really cut way down on the expenses to maintain older vehicles. So I would support that, and I do understand what people are saying, because I think one of the concerns is that people often drive by and see a lot of vehicles.
Yep.
And so, okay, well, why do they need more vehicles if we see these 3 parked there, or these 2, or whatever? I mean, I think that's the concern that was expressed last week, and I think that it's probably goes beyond this board. So, that's an area that we need answers for. What we have to do is decide how to formulate this article. Are we going to leave it with a 2? Or are we going to cut it back to 1? I'll repeat myself again from last week, and that is, it's been a long process here. It's gone through CIP, it's gone through planning board, it's arrived here, and I think it's late in the game to make a change on it, although we perfectly have the right to do it. I think that until last meeting, there was no movement to change it from that request. So I've said my piece. Other board members can.
I feel better knowing that you're gonna rotate starting next year, if this passes. I think that's the one thing that
Yep.
we were concerned about, is the rotation, when that was gonna start.
Yep.
Thank you.
I said my opinion. I mean, four frontline pieces for 2 on-duty officers, the typical. Obviously, there's atypical times where there's more on than that. That gives 2 reserve vehicles of brand new statute. So, again, I'm at 1 still. But that's, if I'm outnumbered, I'll go with the board.
Well, I'm in a dilemma. I would rather have more people here, but again, we've got to make some decisions, whether there's 3 of us or 5 of us here. So I move that we leave it as written with the 2 police vehicles to see where it goes. Jan, did I hear you leaning toward 2?
Yes.
Am I twisting your arm too hard?
No, I wanted to know firmly when rotation was gonna really start, if it's next year.
I'm like I said, I'm looking at my perceived use of them. That's all. So, not to say that both of the Crown Vics, it's a coin toss of which one's worse. Don't get me wrong, and I know that they're both in sad shape, but
there might be 3 of them in bad shape, depending on what you tell me, what you can have me do with the animal control officer. I still haven't gotten guidance from you on that yet, but that's a discussion for after this one, I suppose.
So I think we have a consensus on moving with the article as written. Okay. The next article, hiring an additional police force officer, full-time police officer. Again, there were questions about that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it had to do with filling all the slots. And I know you've spoken a number of times about the timeline it takes to get an officer on duty, so board members have questions.
And it wasn't so much that I don't support the position. It's I just, I wanted to make a statement that I really wish that we had 11 data to say, to have a staff of 11 and say, here is the raw data. We've had 2 years, we've been full staffed, and we're still short. That's my, and I think we all can agree on that. That's where we'd want to be. Like I said, I'm not against this, the 12th. But that was my statement last week, was that's really what I would want to see before I feel 100% confident in supporting that article. My personal self.
Yeah.
I am, like I said, I have no intention of pulling it off. That's not my intention. But I would, to feel 100% behind it in my own mind, I'd rather see data like that than I'm a numbers guy. So
I get it. In this unusual instance, this is, though there is, from my perspective, more than ample available data with the number of officers we have now, when you talk about the visibility or the lack of visibility of the police in your community, and our ability to conduct preventive type patrols while also conducting the ridiculous number of felony investigations that have been on our platter in 2017. And that's with 9 officers. I think the data supports with 9 that we would need that 12th person. I've seen you smirking every time I bring up the national averages and that's New England averages and what we do in New Hampshire. I get it. This is Weare. We do things in Weare the way we want to do them in Weare. I get that. So I won't push my 17 officers agenda anymore. But I can tell you that if you pushed the data aside and didn't consider anything else, nothing else about data, but did consider our statutory obligation and our contractual obligation, we have to have the 12th officer. It's almost, to not have the 12th officer exposes us to liability, whether it's external or internal, that we just don't need. It's the cost of not hiring a 12th officer is the most expensive option that I put in front of you 2 weeks ago. Making the 12th officer the least expensive. I mean, it's just, and that's, if you take the law enforcement side out of the equation completely, just looking at those obligations that we have to meet those obligations.
How are you gonna get it filled?
I would love to say sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And I think that's where we're coming from. I think
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what.
yeah.
I get it, and I think that your move here to raise and appropriate the sum for the second half of the year is entirely appropriate. For us to try and budget it from the beginning of the year or even a quarter of the way through the year, I'm realistic. It would be unlikely, very unlikely, that I'd find that 12th person within the next 3 months. It would, short of the parting of the seas and, a few Christmas miracles, we're not going to have that happen in the next 3 months. However, We are going to continue to recruit as best we can. We're going to continue to use our selection process as best we can. I don't think that the successes that we've had with the quality of police officer that I've brought in front of you for recommended hire, it can be argued. We've had some really, truly exceptional people here, and I want to continue down that path. We're fighting an uphill battle. It's with the unemployment rates in the state of New Hampshire, and even the governor talks about the loss of young people from the state going elsewhere. It's a struggle. We're almost to the point where we're robbing Peter to pay Paul to get police officers here in Weare. They're leaving a good job someplace else and taking a job here, or not, as the case is in some instances. And frankly, we've had some people that we thought were really great candidates until we got them to the polygraph or the psychological exam or the background, where we found things that just really good and decent, seemed like really good and decent people through the first initial parts of the process. Turned out that they wouldn't fit the mold we want them to fit here in Weare. That's the long answer for I hope so, Jan. That's the problem. Is this: if we don't fund it, it won't be until almost this time. Well, it wouldn't be until October, November, or December of 2019 before we saw an officer that may or may not get funded in 2018 on the road. And then we're pushing that obligation back another 18 months. That's crazy.
Well, Rick, you seem to indicate, I think, that you're not suggesting we take this off.
Oh, no.
You just have a concern about getting the positions filled.
Right. Yeah, and I've never discredited our new process that we use. I think it's absolutely superb what we use. Obviously, probably towns around us look at us and give us the dog and what do you guys do all that for? Well, we want top-notch people, and we get top-notch people. So
I got an image, Rick. Yes. Thank you, and on behalf of the men and women that we have hired, I thank you. They work exceptionally hard for us, and I appreciate you recognizing that their quality.
yeah, no, they're top-notch.
So is this moving forward as printed?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that this family we're talking about tonight?
I think so.
Do you want to put the animal control officer discussion on the agenda in the next few weeks?
Yeah, we should. We have to.
Yeah. It's one of those, either we're going to decide to fund it or not, and it's coming up.
I mean, we have it funded in the budget, I think, at the previous level.
Yeah. Okay. Do you need me for anything else?
I don't think so.
I don't know, I was just trying to,
On that other item, just very briefly, without giving away the farm, I've heard, and mum's the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
good night.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I just, I didn't get a chance to do much with it other than the first one under the budget I changed to reflect, that's the number that it is without mine in it.
Mm-hmm.
Government buildings, I just didn't have a chance to get a number together. Might as well just breeze down through. I did not get to add the wording to the town meeting, but I did pull the town meeting of 99 out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll fix that. Benji's article needs to be rewritten like last year's with the difference of money. I I hesitate to continue a lot without 5 of you. You know what I mean? We can sit here and 3 of us decide the ballot, but do you want to, you specifically asked for the police chief, or he specifically asked to come in, and then I asked Karen to come in because those 2 were not here last time. I think you heard from Benji and you heard from Bob Azina last time.
Correct.
The other thing, none of it's been written by, but John asked at the end under the Keno one to add about the deeded property. I added one more on the bottom about the deeded tax property.
1994.
Yeah, from the 94 article.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing I've really added, and I did actually, I'll just back up one more. The fireworks, I was asked to change that back to 65, not 75.
Okay.
So I've made that change, but like I said, I hesitate saying you're gonna put it on the ballot without a board discussion, but I think we talked about them pretty much the last time anyway.
Who asked to pull that back down? Was it
The chair,
of the,
patriotic celebration.
thank you.
Yep.
Or 27.
What's that?
No,
He's hiding the one too.
I'm still in 2017.
Yeah. I hear that.
Suppression, you don't have a number for, but you have a larger discussion there anyway.
I think that's really I think that was really the last debatable topic we really had as a board of 5, was really that one.
Let's just quickly walk through it to make sure.
Okay, let's
We don't
walk
have-
under the
We
budget.
don't have numbers yet, but
Right.
actually, we could almost put numbers on them now. Couldn't they, handwriting be?
Yeah, I just didn't know if the,
Planning board's
something.
gonna have one.
Are you sure? You might break it up into 2 though sometimes. You guys do that.
As far as I know, John, we're gonna define a junkyard, aren't we?
That's our goal, yes, but I don't know.
It's gonna take 1 or 2 hours.
You guys are
to do.
talking Thursday night,
Okay.
next Thursday.
All
I
right.
hesitated to do that until I got official,
Okay,
so that's all. As I said, the raised non-union personnel, that's been updated
To reflect current
so
numbers.
for
that's
current.
as,
after your last meeting.
understand.
Government building, I said before, I don't have a project list yet. We have the 2 that were given to us before. We talked about the windows and we talked about other
Right.
things for a number, but we did take the bell tower still on there by itself, so.
Right.
I would suggest taking the number that we got as an estimate, even though it's a little outdated, but for the repair of the rot around the eaves and so forth.
And use that?
Just a suggestion, because
I agree with that.
that's another pressing issue that has to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And people say, well, you should do this down there before you do this up here, but how many barns do you see fall in because the roof goes bad? You gotta keep the roof
Watertight, so the bottom stays tight.
watertight, and so that, the whole building will stay watertight. So I think that
So take that number off the estimate and use that as a number? There was discussion, if you remember when John was here, about the list from the transfer station, but that's a needle in the haystack, because I have no idea where that list is, because Primex didn't generate a list.
but we have money in there. I have it here somewhere as the
60-ish, isn't it?
balance in the fund. It's not empty.
No,
So
not
there's
by any
something
means.
there to work with, and there's emergency money there.
Mhm.
So if it's taking that town hall, we've got a separate article related specifically to the bell tower.
Yep.
And the other thing in my mind that's the pressing issue is that rot around the upper
62.
edges and then the corner boards and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you did the handicap ramp, you did the few little things to it. Your other big things were your windows and your rot.
Roughly 60.
Yeah, and the windows are covered with the storm windows, so they're
Some of them.
mostly covered with storm windows, so, the putty is about as bad as it can get.
Mhm.
I don't see that as deteriorating
Worse.
more. But if you're open to the weather and it's already started to rot, you better get to it. And that's why I would suggest that we use that figure to put in.
Okay.
Well, I'll go one step above that and use that figure, add 10% to it, and add another 10,000 on top of it for incidentals from the year.
Is that, even though there is a balance in there?
Yeah, I mean, think of a boiler is $6,000. You know, I mean, that's an easy one to soak up. So, I mean, and I'd say 10, maybe 5% instead, just because of I'm thinking that we took it at face value 3 years ago of what it is. It's only gotten worse, and they're gonna start opening up, and it's gonna be Pandora's box. And I think that putting that 3-year-old quote on there might be shorting ourselves. That's my own feeling.
Is 10% what you want to do, or you want to go 5, or what do you want to do? Because he's got his offer's 10% plus 10K.
But I wanna, you know, I'm thinking that fund that we have now, regardless of what we put in there with this, is still gonna get, it's still gonna get used for the rot repair.
And actually, it's kind of at a place where historically there have been board members who thought that we
That's
should
where it should
maintain a
stay.
balance in that area for these kinds of emergencies.
Well, I would also like to see some of that, I mean, not just the town hall, but in here, upstairs,
Right.
her office,
Right.
number one.
And that's why I wanna add a little bit to it, you know, not irresponsibly put a lot of money in there, but
Right.
I'm thinking that that's a good number to start to think of, that might be the incidentals. This weekend we had a problem with the furnace at Southwest Station.
Oh.
And, you know, looking at it, I think that's original building, and that's 1990, 1991. You know, so I'm not saying, you know, it's going good, but I don't wanna see that come up as a new item.
That's a good
8 months
point
down the
too,
road.
Rick, because, you know, when I start thinking about town buildings, I think here,
Right.
not South Weare, not
Eastware.
Eastward.
Weare.
Right.
And they all have their own heating systems and their own
Mhm.
electrical issues and, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that we've replaced the water heater down there, and we've replaced the water pump, you know, over the last couple of years, but, I mean, that's gonna be a big ticket item if that furnace fails. So, not to say it will, and not to say that that's what's gonna fail in the next 5 years, but with so many buildings with age, I think, like I said, one boiler job or a repipe job or whatever, we burn up that 10K number quickly.
Well,
But-
why don't we plug that number in as a starting point
Mhm.
here?
Yep.
And
Let's go
then,
5%.
you know,
5, not
Yeah.
10.
Wait, you think 5% on top of the quote?
yeah, I think it was, you know, I don't know, how can I tell?
Right.
You know, it's 5% on top of the quote, and then if it requires a little extra, there is a little extra there.
Yeah, exactly, that's my thought, is there's extra in that count.
Okay. So we'll move, you already talked about the next two. The wording, I just need to add the name of the fund, which I pulled out from the 99 town meeting. The article number you guys asked about, the naming the special revenue fund. The 10-wheeler, we have to rewrite it like we did last year with the
30K.
balance from there.
We can do 30, right?
Yeah, you did 30 offset, 185 is the number.
One thing that doesn't say, I don't believe, I read it earlier, but
No, this is not the wording you want to use.
the wording would direct it to the capital reserve fund.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like last year, I'm sorry I didn't bring mine, I
Yep.
gave mine away.
For the, no, this one?
And would be the same for the backup?
Yep, the same, we talked about, going to the highway equipment fund. What it would,
I don't know what
yeah. Basically what we did last year was shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of 185,596 to be added to the previously established highway truck and capital reserve fund, anticipated the purpose of replacing an existing plow truck with a new fully equipped 10-wheel plow truck. So that's the wording.
Wording with a different number.
Yep,
Which is gonna be the same.
pretty close.
Yeah.
And road reconstruction is a standard word.
Yeah, I just gotta double check that, but the backhoe one, we also talked about putting into
Yeah.
highway truck and equipment.
Mhm.
The road reconstruction, the part-time truck driver, I don't think we had any change there.
No.
Bridge improvement, you had no change there, that's the next year.
Exactly the same as last year.
Yep,
Right.
Bolton Field, you gave it an okay, other than I gotta spell that word right.
The Razzie,
Razzie,
Right.
just keeping you on your toes.
I'm just trying to razz us.
Yep, I am. Bell Tower, we left alone, we had that quote from the reputable group, I think Sherry led us to them,
Mm-hmm.
so that one was okay. Fire suppression, we still have to have a discussion amongst
we
you
do.
all. Library, we talked about adding the words, first year planning and engineering needs, because there was, it's actually for a total of 4 years, I think, at
Right.
25.
Right, and written the way it is, it looks like it's 25 and done.
Right. Which we learned tonight, we did that 25 wasn't enough even years ago.
Right.
Cemetery, I just have to reach out to Bill Tiffany, I have not. The fireworks, as you can see, the chair wrote back to me of the committee and wanted to move to 65. Conservation, those two articles came directly from Conservation, those are the same ones, I just upped them a little. The discontinuance, we talked about Pine Hill, I just have to have it better worded.
Mm-hmm.
Keno, we talked about as well.
And then,
And the tax deeded property is the one that John wanted to add to remove that except 5
Exception,
acres and 10
yeah.
acres if it had a house. But that, I have to work on the wording
Mhm.
for that.
You know, the Pine Hill,
Yeah, I
you
need to,
should mention the turnaround.
oh yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
not, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask. And none of them have been run by DRA or Laura yet, so I just,
call it defunct turnaround, because it's, the road's been lengthened.
so that's where we, unless anybody has any
On that
suggestions?
Discontinuance of Pine Hill. What do we do now that we have that petition article, even if it doesn't say what they wanted to say?
Yeah, what I have to do is I have to reach out to him now that you've agreed to put it on there. Is he needs to notify all the people that signed it, and they have to agree to withdraw all these people because it was turned in as a petition. So he's got to go back to all of these, according to Laura, and get them to withdraw.
So we're not required to put it on as worded by the petitioners?
No, no. She said, assuming the hammerhead, she would really call it a turnaround. It's part of the public right of way. Then town meeting does need to vote to discontinue the part of the road. Then you'd also need a boundary line adjustment to convey the property after if it was successful
Which
at
the
town
planning
meeting.
board can do.
That the planning board can do, and then he can get everyone who signed a petition to agree to revoke it. Perhaps the town can put a properly worded discontinuance article on, which I think that's what we're doing.
Or trying to do.
What's what we're trying to do, which she could probably assist us in writing it, knowing that she received, I sent her all that.
Right,
So that's why the whole article, the discussion came up about the revoking of the signatures.
right.
Because if it gets discontinued, the planning board handles the rest.
Mhm.
But this was submitted as written to go on as, it's not a zoning change. So it doesn't have anything to do with the zoning.
Is the person aware of that yet? Have you been able to get hold of
I haven't even tried him. I wanted to make sure we weren't gonna pull it off there before, cause it's well within the right. I can put it on just as he's got it presented.
Yeah.
The deadline's the 9th. So it's been in here long before that.
It just, we
Doesn't do what he
let
wants
him-
though.
Let him know as soon as possible. It's gonna take some time to get hold of all those people.
Mm.
How many, 25 or more?
He got 25. He got just 25. Couple in the same household.
Take a walk around this neighborhood.
That'll be half of them.
I was gonna say,
As long as they're aware that we're putting it on, recommending that what happens is exactly.
yep, and I'll give him the process that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if he pushes the issue and wants to put on that way, it's his choice, but it doesn't accomplish what he's looking to accomplish,
Right.
is to get that part of the turnaround to him, to be used for a driveway. So that's all you have for warrant articles? Then we did it in a little bit backwards. It says default and warrant articles, but where you had people here. I believe Beth has our default budget.
Did we want to talk about the suppression or wait till full board?
Oh, I'm sorry, I assumed that, but that's, you're right.
Yeah, we still don't have a number. We're trying to get hold of the, Tony, the project manager.
The question is, are you gonna move forward or are you not gonna move forward?
Well, that's just it. I don't think, if we don't have a number by now, I don't think we're gonna get a solid number in time.
I'm fine with doing it, frankly, at this point.
At this
rather
point,
than-
yeah.
Than trying to rush and looking at it. We try to defend something that we're not.
Get your
sure.
We
rush.
don't know, right. I agree with that.
Yeah, but- Sorry, I keep turning my back on you because I'm looking here at Naomi and
You can turn your back on me, that's fine.
John called me on that.
So you, is it okay for fire suppression to, I mean,
We have the information.
yeah.
To me, we don't have information to make it happen anyways.
It's gonna be enough of a, problem without having the correct information.
Right, I want all the i's dotted and t's
Yeah.
crossed before we even think about it.
All right, so I'll cross that one off.
At least,
For now.
unless somebody comes forward with a.
With a bundle of
within the
information all of a
next
sudden,
week with
yeah.
Something that's really solid for us.
You know, the whole bag of information.
Okay.
Beth, you're on.
Thank you.
And as you can see, it's the same format that you're probably familiar with now. After talking with Naomi today, we did add the proposed budget column on the end. So what you have is the first column was what was approved at town meeting, what the voters approved. The second budget, second column will be the default, and then there's the increase or decrease from the default to the approved. And then there's a note column for why of the increase or decrease. And just for a reference, the proposed budget is on the last column. Again, I know you guys are short tonight. I don't know if you want to review it now or.
Study it and talk about it Monday, but
Well,
I like that idea.
there's a lot to study, but
Yeah.
and these are it. I mean, we are finalized all contracts. Everything is in. We have some questions. I have some questions out to DRA. Mostly regarding the police departments for the default versus his proposed. Because right now the default's his full roster.
That was, I was gonna try and nod to you earlier to ask that question.
Yeah, that's just his full roster.
we were trying to confuse you?
Hmm?
Did you say we were trying to confuse you?
As always.
Is there anything specific here as we're just going through it that you want to draw our attention to? Anything unusual?
Most of it's for contracts or related to the town vote, the raises. All the payroll items are related to the town vote for the raise. Small increase for the healthcare premiums are in there. Anything large that stands out? No. A few things that when we did the 2017 budget, there were one-time items. Those were removed, obviously, from the default. You can see that in the notes column.
What's your pleasure? You want to go through it line by line, or you want to study it and come back to it?
I'd say study.
Hmm?
I'd say study and come back.
We gotta get the other two guys copies too.
Right.
Right, I think.
And there is some information on the back page if you looked at it. Did you look at the back page? It has the back page has the default number, and then Beth's run some numbers, and then look at the proposed number and the difference. There's some percentages as well as dollar-wise.
So I guess
Now, so you'll have to do some studying, because tomorrow we'll have to go to finance, so.
Right.
and we'll invite you back on Monday.
Okay. Is there anything you see now that you might have questions for tomorrow night? Get out your crystal ball. See what kind of questions will be asked of you.
Could you, just as a separate document, run a copy that goes back?
You all set?
Not necessarily including the default, but just like this is from 12/18, and it has where we stood, it goes all the way back to 15, and then the proposed budget for this year for 18. Could you just update that? Or-
Oh, okay.
I would like a copy of it to bring to finance
Okay.
committee with us.
Yeah.
Just so we have that, because it just goes back a little further than what this one is.
Yeah, that one doesn't have any expenses on it. It's just what was approved at town meeting and what this year's default and proposed will be. Based on that, not on expenses at all. But
Anything else, for Jane?
I agree with that.
anything for tomorrow night?
Yeah. No, that'll pretty much cover all the expenses next time you run one of these, right?
Either not the one I'm gonna give you tomorrow, but yeah, next week's.
Yeah.
My inbox is still really full of 2017 invoices.
And also the but the payroll too, right? The payroll is gonna be for this past weekend. So your next week's run would be, you're up to date.
I can increase the paper line pretty quick.
Can you also run the revenue one for us?
This is just, after this last payroll,
Oh, okay.
which luckily the highway department did not go off this weekend.
Otherwise you're here.
So we were very lucky in that.
Maybe going out in- Is it tomorrow night or the night after?
Thursday night, I think.
Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday to Friday.
This is as of.
But that's 18's budget.
Yes.
Yeah, that's after you did everything. You still
Yeah.
got these here,
Yeah, so the rolling
so that's where you ended up.
So the payroll will be really small. It's just really gonna just be the police department working Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So we did
Now,
very
this
well.
remaining amount takes out our decisions from last week.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Everything is up in the encumbrances that you guys.
But there still is going to be more out of that have it.
Well, the other thing
in
is,
your inbox.
Well, a lot of those are those. A lot of
salt
them are
sand I don't think is
contracts.
gonna be 58, because I opened his mail today and there was 4 bills.
Yeah, they're about.
And then there was a
3,000
fuel bill,
apiece.
but, what's that?
They're like 3,000 apiece. for
Yeah,
salt
so there was
land.
4 bills, and then, there was a fuel bill from Dead River for about 6.
Yep. And
So
you just got
those
another
numbers
1,000.
there, as far as the fuel, we had 10. And if you look at the maintenance, I don't think there was that much maintenance. It was a Snell's bill though. And then there's the 58 for salt. I think I only saw about 12.
So it'll
So,
be a lot, not much.
Just goes to show, though, you can get hit at the end of the year.
Yes.
The bills that have come in for salt, and
mhm.
there were 2 of them there today, were very sizable.
Yeah.
And fuel.
I thought it was amazing when he told us, what was it, $34,000 for a 4-inch storm? That's crazy. To see that down in writing, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
it really can go fast.
Where it all shakes out.
Um,
The minutes I proofread, but I forgot one part, so I didn't send them out. I forgot our discussion on the pre-tax. Well, I didn't. If I had 15 more minutes tonight, I could have finished them,
Okay, so we're not gonna do the minutes, we'll go to the manifest.
which I think you have.
And I have it here. I move to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payable checks dated January 4th, 2018, as included in the following manifests. Payroll, $68,057.11.
Hey, Beth.
Fire department payroll manifest, $3,613.69. Accounts payable, $114,027.36. And an accounts payable to John Scott Regional for $250,000. Total manifest is $435,698.16. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You need a copy?
I got one, but I'll take yours too.
Yeah,
Might as well.
I think I might have that one in my scrapbook.
Yeah, okay. I don't have really much to offer you other than we did post this for the meeting tomorrow night, a joint meeting.
Oh, good.
So I just want to make sure that everybody, I don't know that you'll get 5, but I know the 3 here are going. I don't know, Jack said he would go, so he's going to be back. No, I didn't, there's nothing new.
Okay.
That's why I said I don't have any report.
So you don't have a...
I do not, other than to tell you that we have a joint meeting that's been posted tomorrow at 7.
How's the garage?
The furniture came in on Friday. We are supposed to have final this Friday. And I talked to Benji briefly, and the furnace, they did not start the furnace today.
The waste oil or the...
Waste oil for the radiant.
They've got it pumped in.
Right, the fuel's all
So it's
in.
warming up.
It's been serviced. I saw that in the manifest.
What about the overhead doors today?
We had all but one left to my knowledge when I talked to Benji. Benji and I didn't get a chance to talk today other than passing.
They were working on them. I went down on Friday.
Yeah,
And they
we went
were
down.
just to get a picture of it now that the doors and things are on the offices and so forth.
The doors are on the offices, the furniture is in, the furniture fit nicely, the lunchroom is done, they've been using it for the last storms. They did paint the mezzanine floor so that they can start putting this stuff into the upstairs, because it was just gonna be left with plywood, and if you dripped oil or whatever on it, it's gonna just seep out and do that. But like I said, I went down Friday and I didn't get a chance to talk to Benji today.
Looks something impressive. Really does.
Yeah, and they had put, quite a bit of the trucks were in, and you could see there's a lot of room. They were backed in, yeah, they were tight for now because of the fact that all the contractors got all their stuff quite a bit away from the wall that they're using for workspace, but he had a good share of them in. They were changing cutting edges inside, they were, but that was around lunchtime, I think. I didn't go back and I didn't talk to him today. But I know that he did let them move them in, just if they needed to go out this weekend, they were gonna be warm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, instead of being out in this nice sunny weather that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, expect bigger heating bills.
Well, no, and I'll just share with you too, I babysat the town hall all weekend. Because we had, there was no heat in there, and they always called about 11:30, 12:30 at night.
Yeah.
But it was a matter of a reset for some reason. I had to reset twice. Saturday, the technician was there. Sunday, we tried 3 times, and then the technician got there Sunday night, 11:30, and he took it apart and cleaned it. And knock on wood, I'm gonna go over there before I leave tonight, make sure it's still running. Every now and then I get up and made sure it was still smoking.
It said you're allowed at 3 a.m., just go up.
So this is in addition to the bill that we had. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I had the guy there Saturday and a guy there Sunday, because Scott Dinsmore, actually, I called him to help me, because I
Because that
couldn't.
bill said it didn't need to be cleaned. Like, you didn't think it needed to.
Well, this guy, it would cycle up,
Yeah.
but then for some reason, when it shut off, it wouldn't cycle back up. So there was either the eye was dirty or something, I don't
A
know.
probe or a temp probe.
And it was awfully cold.
Oh, I bet.
Right.
So those, it's,
This weekend.
the temperature, those low, we put in alarm monitors after that 1 year. So when it gets down to 45, it calls me.
Oh,
That's good.
So, and I know how to reset it, take the side off. I'm well versed at doing that.
Don't have to worry about the cover not coming off.
So, but knock on wood, it stayed, and it wasn't calling for heat yesterday because it had brought the building back up to temperature. So, but like I said, I'll go over there before I leave and make sure with my flashlight that there's stuff on it.
See if there's smoke coming out
Yep.
of the chimney.
Well, we can't have it. It's going to be too cold.
No, it's gotta be the word.
But we're not alone. Just want to share with you. We had a conference call at 5. There's a lot of communities that are opening warming shelters for people to go, because some of the deliveries are just, they're taking care of the order of pre-buy. The next is contracts. The next are, what do you call them, automatic deliveries, and then the
Will call.
will calls are
And they're
last.
saying will calls 2.5 to 3 weeks out,
Yep, till the 15th at least.
at least. Yeah, I saw that on the news before.
So if you didn't pre-buy and you didn't contract and you're not on automatic,
Could be 3
you
weeks
could
to
be
get oil.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's a crisis, and that's why we had a phone call with emergency management, but,
There was a recommendation, go and get a local fuel pump and get it back in a little whack.
yeah, they talked about
If
that.
that's what you can get,
But if you have propane, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, that's my deal difficult.
So,
knock on wood, Mike has been good to me.
Right, yeah.
Well, that
He
no,
was-
was here the 28th, and gave me some, and gave me some again today.
Yeah,
well, we had,
Tops
we
me
got a
off
delivery
in the
yesterday.
neighborhood.
luckily we're automatic, I mean, it's
Yeah.
here.
Well, I
Yeah.
am too, but.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But
Okay.
I couldn't imagine being a will call right now.
That's all I have. No. That's exactly right.
Only comment?
Good evening, John Van Walker Hill Road. Couple of questions for the warrant article, police cruisers. Jan, you had mentioned something about a rotation plan. I'm not familiar with that. Maybe
Rotation, in other words, he's gonna
to
start
rotate.
replacing
Okay, not
only one
rotating
vehicle.
use of the
No,
vehicles.
No, just, yeah.
Okay. With these, if this article passes,
Mhm.
is there going to be a reduction in the maintenance line for the police cruisers?
We reduced it again. It was proposed at 25 and we
Dropped down to 20, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Is it gonna go down further if these 2 vehicles are approved?
I don't think we discussed that.
No, good point.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
That's 2 more off the
Certainly a
plate.
discussion we should have.
No.
Okay.
At least another $3,500.
Okay. Next question, again, under the police, for the next article. This additional person, is this to fulfill the townspeople's request of returning 24-hour coverage?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe should say that in there somewhere. This is just a thought. Next, this past weekend, I believe there was a accident with the plow truck. Is the plow truck damaged? Is it still usable? Do we know?
I don't even know we had one.
Yeah, we had one hit. Yeah, we did. Or not this weekend. I think it was past.
Was it
weekend.
last weekend?
Yeah.
I knew it was one of
It
these.
was past weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Past weekend. Right.
Is that plow truck still in service?
I believe it is. Am I wrong in saying that? Yeah, I believe it is.
Okay.
It was a pickup collision, I believe.
Okay. Maybe it was last weekend then.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
believe it was last weekend.
It's
Yeah,
been a
no,
long
no.
couple of weeks.
Yeah, they all blend
Yeah.
together. It's not. Yeah, only it was last weekend. 'cause I was plowing myself,
Wait.
so.
That wasn't a collision.
It was a pickup versus a plow truck. I just don't remember.
No, because we had a public service pole fall on
Oh,
one on Weare,
On
on a plow truck, and the guy was in it.
Oh, I didn't hear that one. I was
Um,
concerned about the truck versus another car.
Yeah. I did hear that.
I didn't,
But I
so.
totally spaced it, asking about it.
Okay.
Yes, we
So
did.
DPW,
Yeah, it was I forget where it was.
be expecting my phone to buzz shortly.
I want to say it was Deer Haven, but I'm not sure.
I'm not 100% sure.
But there was no injury, I know that, on
No.
either side. No.
Was it
Something
Worley?
my daughter would say, I was hit by a telephone pole.
Maybe Wardley.
Yeah.
No, not yet. No response yet. I'll let you know.
Next is fire department. It was mentioned earlier, East Weare Station. How often is the engine in the East Weare Station actually roll?
Without representing the fire department in my statement, not very often.
Okay,
My experience is the fact that usually that is more so considered a brush truck now for Clough State Park.
okay.
That is what's more. It's still outfitted as a structural truck, but as far as like I said, it usually rolls. It rolled 2 or 3 times to Clough State Park this year
Okay.
for brush fires.
What's the annual cost to keep the East Weare Fire Station running? Between heating, electricity,
We can tell you that.
plowing, all that stuff.
We can tell you that.
And
As
the
far as
maintenance,
plowing, we can't tell you that. But
and the maintenance of the vehicle that's inside it.
we can give you that particular vehicle. We can't give you the number right off the top of our head. We can
Okay.
get the number.
The reason why I asked that is
Nope.
a couple of weeks back, I drove by there in the evening, saw the lights on there like it always is, the single filament bulb in there, but it was empty. The station, the vehicle was missing.
Yes.
Don't know how long. It was the first time I had noticed it, but I don't know how long it had been missing. So we're still. I wasn't sure if it had gone for an extended period of time, but we're still providing electricity, and I'm just curious if it's even a station that's feasible anymore.
That was there was another unit that was down at the center that was gone, so that pulled down into the center.
Okay.
It's kind of a reserve piece. I believe that's what the chief's intentions are.
Okay.
Sugar Hill. It's 400 appropriated for electric and 750 for heat a year.
Per year. Okay.
So
I can answer your question on the car accident.
see, just need a little time.
Yes. Thank you for watching.
There was someone that hit T7 on Clark Mill. No damage to us, and it was not our fault. It was theirs.
Okay.
So we had no damage.
Okay.
Clark Mill.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Right,
I got a question for Ricky.
Uh-oh. I don't know. I'll be put on the spot.
Sorry, I had a call on you as we went along with the budget.
What's that?
I said, I should have called on you as a finance.
man, John.
committee
Well, I
member
had
as we
some
went
questions
along.
for Sean, but, I mean, she's aware of them. Lori's been after her for
Got a waiver.
4 or 5 weeks to get some information that typically every town gets at this time of the year from the department. Because I worked in Merrimack and I had to do all that stuff. Well, I know how, number of vehicle stops, what they were, how many citations, how many warnings. Oh, we want all these statistics and we're not getting them from the finance committee. Question for Ricky, we had a structure fire down on River Road.
Yes.
That little house that's little
Yes.
matchbox house?
Mhm.
Was he charged? Did he have a permit for that? I don't believe he did. Because it's
for burning the house.
the wood stove that caused the fire of the house.
Oh,
You have to have a permit, correct?
you have to have it inspected when you put it in.
Was it inspected?
That I couldn't tell you. I don't know,
Is it-
and I wasn't at that call. I was in Concord working.
Well, good for you.
So, so
The point is, you have to have a permit for an oil burner, wood stove, that kind of thing, right?
yeah, when they're installed.
When they're installed,
be inspected.
you have to get a permit, then it has to be inspected. Well, the cause of that, according to whoever was in charge down there from the fire department at the time, said it was illegally and not illegally, not correctly installed,
Improperly installed.
improperly installed, and that it was, did not have adequate spaces between combustible materials. Was he charged? Is he gonna pay for all that labor that we went down there?
That I couldn't tell you.
Who would know that?
Fire chief.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll definitely call him.
yeah. That's way above my position.
I'm not aware of that happening in the past.
It was right in the, I've got the,
I don't mean the fires, I mean the, asking the person to pay the fire department. Another,
well, if you're burning brush and it gets away and the fire department comes, you're liable.
Can be. You can be. It's not, we usually don't, but it can be.
Well, it's no different than the ambulance, right? We're charging for ambulance service.
Only
It's
if
tax dollars being spent that should not have been spent, because if it was done right and inspected, it never would have happened. Right? Have you got anywhere with Sean on those statistics, Naomi?
I have not, I mean,
We've been
I did
asking
not.
for them for like 5 weeks.
I don't have
I'm
any.
not sure that we should follow through on that.
Yeah.
We'll have to,
Maybe tomorrow you can get them for us for tomorrow night. Maybe wand that, wave that magic wand or something.
yeah, I mean, Sean is, he has lots of statistics, I'm sure he has that material, because, yeah, he's just, that's his thing.
Yeah, I mean, the question was asked to fill out a right to know, so he knew exactly what kind of statistics we were after. Because I was there that night when the question was, they don't fill it out because it's the finance committee asking. So.
We don't have anything.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, the question was asked, because I was there that night, and he asked if they filled out a right to know, so we knew exactly what kind of statistics they were looking for. And the comment back was the finance committee doesn't have to fill out a right to know, we can just get the statistics. But there's a lot of statistics, according to Sean, that have to be, for what I gathered, it was looking for dates, times, what type of incident, and location. Now, that's a little extensive.
I'm not too concerned with the location unless you're trying to break the town.
Right,
into
and so the
coordinates, but-
concern being the location would be redacted, so that has to take time for someone to do it. I think he has readily available, I don't know if it's broken down by time and date, but the incident and the nature of, you know what I mean, what it was, when it was, I don't know if it's about time, but I do know he gave statistics when we talked last time about the 12th officer with needing, because of, I tried to jot them all down, but he has those general statistics, but it's not broken down by day, time, location,
Okay,
and
when a
nature
call
of it.
comes in from Goffstown, do they do what we, in Merrimack, when somebody would call in, we would fill out an incident report?
Yeah, I can't tell you what
And we
happens
would
when
put the nature of
phone
the
call
call,
works.
the location, the complainant's phone number, or the reporting phone number of the person that reported.
When you say you took that, that was before dispatch?
Oh, I was in dispatch.
Okay. I'd have to ask dispatch what they logged down, but I think it's all,
And then there was one of those things for files, and we had 4 cars on the road then, I don't know how many they have now, but sector 1, 2, 3, and 4, if it was a sector 1 call that went in that, when that officer
Okay.
came in, he put notes on it and whatever, and then it got filed. Or if there was an arrest involved, it went with all the paperwork for the
well, I
arrest.
know that when you dial 911 now, there's a lot of information that populates anyway, because everybody knows where you are at all times, most of the time, if you even,
911 takes quite a bit of information.
so it
Really.
doesn't, nobody's asking
Basically, what I'm
that.
looking for, and Laura and I have discussed this, is the number of motor vehicle stops, the number of arrests, and under that, you want, was it DWI? Was it operating after revo or suspension? Was it just a warning issued for a yellow line violation, or was it a summons for that? Numbers like that is what we're looking for. Accidents? What kind of accident? Was it
So you're looking
PI
for the
accident?
number of motor vehicle stops, the number of,
Just a general breakdown.
Just
in-
a general
in-
breakdown.
okay.
Total number of motor vehicle stops, and under that, how many was for speeding, how many were for DW?
So you're
how
looking for
many
the type under that,
type?
okay. So number of motor vehicle stops and the type of stop is really all you're looking for?
No, well, that's,
That's motor vehicle part of it, and then
well, you know, what was the resolution? Was it just a verbal warning, a written warning, or summons, or an arrest? How many arrests do they have for the whole year for anything? Whether it's motor vehicle, a felony, a misdemeanor, how many arrests have they made? And of the total arrests, how many were misdemeanors? How many were just motor vehicle, and how many were felony arrests? A or B? So just that general kind of statistics, because that's how you prove your case hit the ballot box. That's what, every town does that.
Well, I think he has that pretty well done here in last
I mean, this list
year's-
would be pages,
See, that's where I
You
think we're in
wanted
the
each
wrong.
individual case?
just like
Yeah.
like I read it.
It's
Not
like
enough.
500
I didn't know if
pages.
you wanted numbers.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So he doesn't want just a recap. He wants the individual stop at 12:56, and then at 3:14, and then at,
Well, the time is not as relevant as what it was for.
Base numbers, right?
no, he's not
But
looking
I
at
think
these
it was, I
numbers.
think initially it was asked for time, date.
If you can get that, that's
Well,
fine, but it's not as
That's the part that was
important.
gonna take the biggest, I think that was what was gonna take the biggest time span, because then you gotta go down through it, redact what, people's information off it, et cetera. But if you just want to say that there was 10 DWI, arrests done in the month of November, I don't see why that couldn't be done. But if you wanted to say that the DWI was at South Stark Highway in front of, Dunkin' Donuts, I think that's a little much to ask.
Yeah, I don't see why you would want more than the first.
Than just the numbers.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I don't
Right.
see that. And also, it's gonna be kind of skewed too because of the fact that we are short on staff. So things like out on patrol, we're having a hard time getting people out on patrol because, as we've been told a number of times, we're dealing with so many felonies that require paperwork that it's taking away from those people out on patrol. And so it's, the very shortage skews it, you know what I mean?
My other question is, with, we got 9 guys plus the chief? There's a lieutenant, a
Yes.
couple sergeants, and the rest of patrolmen. 9 guys, why do we need 5 or 7 cars? We just don't. The only reason we have 9 cars when he came on board 3 years ago was every time we'd lose a chief like almost every year, you know what I'm talking about. They would automatically get a new car, and then they never got rid of the old one, they kept it. And that happened year after year, every time a new chief came in, we got a new car for that person. And we wound up with 9 cars and we had 6 guys. We don't need 9 cars for 6 guys. I know you're back up to 11 now at whatever it is, but we don't need that kind of cars for that amount of people.
You know, that's an opinion, and you heard our discussion with the chief tonight, as far as getting the fleet up, so you have 5 new cars, basically, 1 or 2 years old. And then we work from that point, not to add more cars, but to rotate them so that when we have a vehicle that still has major value, it's rotated out, so instead of paying the $27,000, $25,995, whatever it is, for a new vehicle, we're able to have a major trade, have a much less upfront cost on the replacement, and as long as they don't change the design of the vehicle, we can transfer the equipment over. So instead of having something that costs us $44,000 or whatever it is with the equipment, we'll have a vehicle, I can't give you a number, but considerably less than that as we rotate out, and we don't have the expense of keeping up old vehicles. We're just basically working
I understand all
on
that.
tires and oil changes.
They have 2 guys on per shift, right? Why do we need more than 2 cruisers? We've got 3. That would give one for a supervisor possibly. They had to come out and back up one of the 2 patrolmen on, a sergeant had to come out and back them up, or something of that nature. It might be on duty doing paperwork or something, felony paperwork or whatever. Or if we haven't ever had got the luxury of a detective to take the workload off of the guys that we need in the street.
But these are all issues that have been discussed over the years. I don't have an answer for you tonight.
I know,
except
but
that-
I mean, this is what's going through my mind and a few of other people in the finance committee's mind too.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else for public comment?
Frank Campana, perfect example, I can sit through a meeting and still not get information. I can hear it, but, so save me maybe, hopefully a call from Naomi tomorrow. Can you tell me, well, the pages aren't numbered.
No, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. The capital reserve fund for the building maintenance, was that one that you ended up plugging a number into?
We haven't
I
got the
thought-
number, we're gonna plug one in, because we
Okay.
have, what we decided, I believe tonight, is that looking at the rock that's around the eaves and things at the town hall, we do have an estimate on that from, probably 18 months ago. So if we look at that and add a percentage to it, that's, I think, Rick, that's what we said, we could use that as a number to put in that article.
Okay.
So that we have the bell tower, which is the roofing and the spires and everything is one article. But then aside from that, an amount to work on that rot area on that building.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I heard the percentage, increase it, but I wasn't sure if it was in the government building maintenance or if it was ascribed to the bell tower,
No,
to
bell
increase the
tower.
bell tower. Okay,
We have had two estimates so far on the bell tower, and that's the lower of the two.
okay,
And it's an estimate that was given to us by the company that did the Clinton Road tower.
yeah, okay, I heard all that, but again, tonight, I didn't know where the 5% was gonna be applied to. Excuse me,
It's
applied
because we have
to.
an old estimate
All right,
on the rot.
and then the highway department, the backhoe, well, the 10-wheeler, the dump truck and the backhoe, there was, and I understand this is a draft. I know there's, and you have discussed the capital reserve, the money that's in the capital reserve fund for the truck and highway. Is that gonna be, that's gonna be reflected?
Yeah, what
In
we're
the-
gonna do is it's gonna be reworded like it was last year,
Okay,
so that the money that's in the capital reserve fund will be subtracted from the total.
okay,
So there'll be this, almost the same article, $185,000
right, okay.
to go into that.
Yeah, because I think
For the
there's
truck.
36,000 in
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And same question for the backhoe, was there,
The backhoe is gonna go into the fund as well.
that's,
With no
But there won't be an
Into-
offset.
offset.
There is
With
an
no
offset.
offset.
There's an offset there that's already been paid, so to speak, because we've been renting that machine, and the company's gonna apply, what, 80% of the rental cost
Yep.
toward the price?
I understand all that, too,
So
yeah.
there's an offset there, but there's not an offset from the capital reserve fund for the backhaul.
Right,
We're
because-
applying that to the truck.
because I thought and I tried to find my notes from the capital improvement committee, when they did the highway department, I sat in on, and I was confused even then if there was gonna be money applied, additional money.
They did talk
applied.
about applying the money that's in the transfer station equipment fund, but this
Correct,
is
yeah.
highway, because the backhoe's staying at the transfer station.
Yeah,
The current one's staying.
So the
Yeah.
current one's staying, and this new one is a DPW
Yeah.
highway piece, so
Yeah.
they weren't gonna take the money out of the transfer station.
yeah. That will actually be a question when the appropriate time comes, because,
Okay.
there's a word replacement. To me, replacement, well, I don't know if it's in here, and I don't need to take up time.
It says purchasing.
Purchasing a backhoe, right. But in the presentations, CIP, last year and even this year, the word replacement has been in there. So to me, definition of a replacement is not keeping the old one. And,
I think
That's
I think last year, that was the
Intention.
Right.
intent.
It did say it last year, replace.
right,
That intent has changed. this
yeah.
year.
Yeah. Okay. Then, that's it for public, oh, well, actually, one other thing. And I don't mean it as a trick question, but and I don't expect an answer, because there kind of really is no answer. When I followed the budget printouts for insurances, general liability, workman's comp, page 6 of 16. And those, we remember several years ago that the liability insurance was increasing considerably. Now it's starting a downward trend of 47, it's a $47,000 decrease. And my question is, and again, I'm not looking for an answer honestly, but my question is, where did I see that savings? And that's it, that's all I want to say, to give an example. And I did listen to bits and pieces of the meeting last week. I didn't attend it. But you had spent, you had allocated some budget surplus money for a number of different items. And two of them were police department. One was, well, the dollar amount, about $2,800 for, no, I'm sorry, I don't care about the computers as much, but about $1,100 for these red dot optics, which to me, layman, is a laser, I guess. And then shields, these, things you hold up in front, is, I don't know, $9,000 there, a little over $9,000. I'm
No,
not necessarily.
They were 960.
900.
Oh, 900?
$960.
Oh, yeah, I right, 960 for two.
For two shields.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my concern is, you approve them pretty readily. As far as the red dot optics, it was mentioned they go on long guns, not pistols. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and presume that they're going on the assault rifles. I don't know that we have shotguns to classify them as a, as a long gun. So if in fact they're going on that, on the assault rifles, and the shields, what is the town gearing up for? What is the police department gearing up for? Do they, does the police chief figure that we're gonna get, become a combat zone? And I thought it was, there was one selectman that made the comment in regards to the red dot in supporting of it. I said, well, paraphrasing, because I couldn't look at a YouTube, I think the fellow was away to post that. He said, yeah, he says, we don't want, again, paraphrasing, with the red dots, we avoid the possibility of, misdirected shots, So that's what is in the war zone. They call it collateral damage, Yeah. So, what is the selectmen okaying things for? Assault rifles, lasers, shields, you guys ought to think this through a little bit more. It's, I just don't get it. I was trying to think where would you use the laser or the red dot. I would think probably an appropriate place might be if somebody called for a rabid animal. You probably want to take take the task of destroying it, obviously for obvious reasons. So you want to make sure your first shot is good. But against a two-legged animal, boy, I'll tell you, the town is, I think, has already gone down a slippery slope.
That's a big, I'm not really trying to answer your question, but I know that it is a broad question. It has to do with municipalities that are bigger than ours as well. For example, there are at least 2 communities that have these bear cats. And, you ask, why do you need this really almost military vehicle in the city? And, it's for the eventuality you hope never comes. I hope that you're absolutely right that the only thing these are ever needed for are rabid animals.
Well, certainly the shields aren't. But now I know, Tom, you've laid the groundwork for a bear cat. So, right? We laugh, but I'll make sure I have a copy of the minutes. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
Actually, I was very much against seeing cities take those in. I think that if the state police had a couple of them, one in the North Country and one centrally located where they were needed, that would be appropriate use. But that's
But again, this is the town. I'm more concerned about what was approved for.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just in a quick perusal of the default budget that was submitted tonight, there's just going through one department, the police department, there's over $50,000 of items that are higher total, $50,000, that are higher in the default budget than they are in the proposed budget. So I understand you may be having a meeting tomorrow night, but I'll just give you one line item, item 231 in the police department, police part-time officer wages. The default number has $42,000 in that line. The proposed budget is $10,500. I hope the board goes through and looks at the proposed numbers. If they're less than what is in the default budget, then I would hope the default budget would be reduced to match the proposed budget. I've gone through, I think there are 9 or 10 items in the police department, a total about $50,000. I hope that's what the board does. There's no justification to keep that number higher if the department head says I can do it for less. Let's see. You're adding 30 hours for a part-time position at the highway department. I really find it hard to, pardon me? You're taking a 40-hour position, which was held by the administrative secretary, and you make it into a 70-hour position. You're hiring a person, it's not even put on the warrant, actually. You've created another position. Now, I understand that person that's being paid 40 hours was doing some of that. But now what you've done is you've taken the 40-hour job, you've added 30 hours per week for the taxpayers to pick up, without even putting it on the warrant. I don't see how you can justify that. The only way, in my mind, that you could justify it, you would reduce the number of hours for the administrative secretary, because that person's been doing those two jobs, for a number of years. Regardless of where the building is or what condition the building is, you've got one person doing 2 jobs, 40 hours a week. I've not heard any complaints. And now you're adding 30 hours to that without even putting it on the warrant. You're adding a position. Now, maybe legally you're allowed to do that, but I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Actually, we're going back to a position that was already there. The highway secretary had for many years been a 30-hour position, and the town administrative secretary was 40 hours. So that's where it's coming from. That was standard, and right now we're also finding that the highway director is having to do a lot of his own secretarial work. But anyways, that's where that's coming from, because the 30 hours.
Was that last year, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? How long have we had one person doing both jobs? 40 hours a week?
In the last few years, that's right.
Few years?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but when Sue, who moved over to the fire department, were you on the board when we made that change?
Right.
She had been 30 hours a week here, and we did a switch of positions, and
Then we switched one more time and made the tax collector
I
that.
understand that.
Yep.
I was here when that happened, but that's been at least 3 years.
Oh,
I think.
probably a little more than that.
Yeah.
I think it's been more than that.
Yes, but that's where that's coming from. It
Then
is
why
going-
why are we adding 30 hours if we had one person doing that job?
Well, it's
For
changes.
40 hours, let me just finish, for 40 hours. Now you want somebody down at the highway department for 30 hours. We've had that position, like that. We've had a person go down at the highway department, spend 2 or 3 days down there and come back here, work 40 hours, doing something else. That's, if you want to go back, that's how it was originally done. Now you're telling me, well, no, we need that person to do the 40 hours, which she was splitting her time up doing the highway department stuff.
Over the years, I know we did a lot of consolidating when you were on the board, Dick. And part of that was that this doesn't apply so much to the highway department. but it applies to other things that are in our future that are very, make the same case on. As times change and the economy changes and so forth, there's a renewed need where there was not a need during recession time. For example, the building department, land use department, we consolidated. The assessing department, we consolidated. And I don't know where those are going, but I wouldn't be surprised if, as we move ahead in the next few years, we find that there's a need to reinstate some positions there that we lost for consolidation just because the need wasn't there at the time. We'll see.
Well,
I'm off subject.
Right.
I know you're just talking about one position.
Well, I'm also talking about the fact that it's not even on the warrant, that you're getting around putting it on the warrant by including it in your operating budget. Because how? Why? You're adding 30 hours. That's a position, that's a full-time, almost a full-time position. Matter of fact, it might even qualify for some full-time benefits without even putting it on the warrant. If you want to do it, put it on the warrant. 30-hour part-time position down at the highway department. You're getting around putting it on the warrant.
I don't personally see it that way, because we are going back to a position that was there, and we're reestablishing it because the need is there.
When was it last on the budget? Was it always in the budget? The 30 hours? I mean, it was, some of the hours for the administrative secretary were against the highway department. Right? I mean, why is it changing? Why? I mean, I think you're adding a position. And what's going to prevent you from making that 40 hours a week? You could do that next year without it. You've added a position, basically, and you're circumventing the voters' opportunity to at least pass judgment on it. The 10 hours per week for the this is a public hearing. If people are talking, I'd like to hear what they're saying.
I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
Adding 10 hours a week for the highway department, for plow, for covering snowstorms so that the mechanic doesn't have to run a plow route.
That's
Why did we get away from using the transfer station people to do that? I mean, you think they would be readily available, especially if it's something during the day. And if it's snowing, there's probably not a lot of people going to the transfer station. I'm sure we have at least one person down there that's qualified to drive a plow truck. We've hired a part-time person down there, so we got 2.5 people or more people down there. Why can't we utilize the transfer station employee to take care of the 10 hours or whatever it would be? It's not 10 hours. I guess it's a dollar amount that's on the warrant, $6,500 or something. Why can't we use the highway department person? I mean, the transfer station. Rhetorical question. Why was the incentive, the education incentive, removed from the operating budget for the police department? I just noticed that it's like peeling back layers of an onion sometimes. Why is that no longer in the budget?
It's part of the, I can answer
It was
that.
part of the contract, the contract that was approved last year. We took the same amount and we rolled it into their wages, so that there's not an incentive, but if a person has that, for example, if a person has a master's degree in criminal justice, then it's divided up and rolled into their wages based on 40 hours. I have to go back and look at the exact language. The reason for that was it's part of this whole recruiting, and we agreed with it as a negotiations team, that it would help with the recruiting because it would show an increased wage at different levels.
That's the purpose of it?
It was a negotiation.
I understand negotiation. But that for a person who's getting the $1,500 stipend as part of an education bonus, I don't think it's an incentive, because once they achieve that level of education, they get the money. So Might be an incentive for other people to go out and pursue an education within the police department, I guess. But that amounts to about 72 cents per hour. That $1,500, somebody who has a master's degree. But what happens with the overtime? I mean, that now becomes over $1 an hour in overtime. Double time, it becomes $1.40 or something. It's $1.50. So it's costing the taxpayers money for that to happen. You added it to their hourly rate. Yet, I noticed that in the budget, the overtime, I believe, is kept at $100,000. That means he's gonna be working fewer hours in overtime. Because now you gotta figure in not only that increase, which was 72 cents an hour, and the majority of the people down there do get the increase. I think it's $1,000 or $1,500. And in addition to their salary increase as a result of the collective bargaining agreement, he's still gonna just set aside $100,000? How come we're not accommodating the increase in that budget line, in the salary increase?
We hope that the overtime goes down if we get full staff there. We're working with 9 officers. Even filling the 2 positions will help considerably. And if we get the 3rd one, so we have 12 officers, then that's gonna offset the overtime. Actually, one of the things that's happened and that I see on a regular basis in reviewing the manifest is that we've gotten away from the days when overtime was dangerous for the officers and for the public.
All right, yes.
So even though that we're overspending that line and having to take it out probably of a regular officer's wage line, we're not seeing hours that reach into the area where it's dangerous to the officer. A lot of times it's a 10-hour overtime or a 15 at the most, and rarely does it go over that. So,
Well, the line should be increased to reflect wage increases, but.
That was asked by one of the other selectmen about increasing that line because it was overspent this year
yeah.
and last year and the year before.
Well, it's gonna
that.
be overspent again this year if they put in the same number of hours by a
And it-
significant amount.
And
So I think you should increase it.
the chief's recommendation was to leave it.
Well, because hopefully we'll be able to recruit and get the staff up to where it should be, and then that will go down as a commensurate rate.
Yeah, that's another subject, isn't it, now? I mean, for 3 years, we've been short 2 officers.
Sorry.
For 3 years, we've been short 2
Yes.
officers. That's $600,000 that you've asked the taxpayers to spend for 0 services, 0. And the other thing you can talk about is, gee, I hope we get more officers, I hope. But, here's an endless pit of money that will just keep pouring money into the operating budget, regardless of whether or not we hire somebody. 3 years. That's a failure. In 3 years, we haven't been able to hire officers. We've hired, as far as I know, 1, maybe 2, but one of them was dismissed. So, and the one that we hired has got experience, which is great. But 2 officers for 3 years, that's a lot of money we spent for 0 services. And he wants another one. Now, I'm not a law enforcement expert by any stretch of the imagination, but just from a pure bean counting standpoint, man, you gotta ask yourself, why are we doing this? We are now, whether you know it or not, we are now the 2nd safest town in the state of New Hampshire. 2nd. Of the number of towns our size, and the study was done based on towns of 1,500 or more. There are 47 towns in this state that have a population of 6,800 or greater. We are the safest town, according to statistics, of those 47 towns. We are the safest. What do we get for that? What do the good citizens of Weare get for that? Nothing. We get nothing.
Peace of mind.
We get a request for another officer, and we get a request to fund 2 officers that we haven't been able to hire for 3 years. 3 years! There's got to be something wrong with the process. It's not that if you think that people are reluctant to get in law enforcement today, I would think that somebody wants to get into it would like to migrate to a town like Weare, rather than deal with the dangers of an inner city. I don't know. How high is the bar to hire somebody? It's pretty sad that we haven't been able to do this for that long a period of time, yet we keep funding it. So I'll say it, I said it before and I'll say it again, we're doing such a great job. We're the second safest town in the state of New Hampshire, based on a population of 1,500 or greater. We're doing it with 9 officers. Let's continue to do it with 9 officers, and if anything, let's maybe give those people a raise for appreciating, the work they've done. But no, you just keep coming back to the pump, priming the pump. Unfortunately, it's sad that we haven't hired enough 2 officers. It really is sad. It's a failure somewhere in the system. The other, I got just 2 more things. That thing, I guess. We received $237,654 from the state for part of a road reconstruction bonus or something. And that money, as the town administrator had mentioned, that money can be used to purchase equipment. Can be used to purchase equipment within the highway department.
I don't know if it can be, that's not our intent at all. That's not the highway department.
That was one of the allowable uses.
So why aren't we, I know, somebody, dropped a bundle of cash on my desk, I guess I'd find a use for it. And I'm not saying that the money couldn't be maybe spent in fixing some things, but I don't know what those things are. But I know one thing, it would purchase that truck, save the taxpayers some money. It would purchase that truck, a needed vehicle, that would save money for the taxpayers of this town. $237,000. And you're not using a penny of that to purchase that vehicle.
May I respond to that? Because there are so many roads in this town that are in such desperate condition. You don't have to go far to find them. We've had a person come in and talk about their road, Fork Road, and I drove it and it was in bad shape. And if you were to tear that one road up, right down to nothing, and grind it up and resurface it, it would take
The whole
2/3 of all of that money.
All the money.
Almost at
All of
one.
it.
That's great. What's $237,000 to buy you for road
237,000.
reconstruction?
Well, if you have to take a mile of road, bring it right down to reclaim, which is grinding up the pavement and doing it, and you add in the second year with the top coat of pavement, it's about $200,000.
All right, well, what would we have done if we didn't have that money come in?
What the intent is with that money, I believe.
If it didn't come in, what would we be doing?
Fielding people complaints about
I guess
the
people would be
roads.
just driving into big holes and never coming back out again, right? It'd be
Pretty close on some
It'd
of
be
these
Armageddon,
roads.
I guess.
But-
$237,000 can be used for something that we can put our hand around. That's a new vehicle for the highway. And that vehicle is just as critical to me as it is fixing some potholes in a road. $237,000 is not gonna give you a new road. So you could
Yeah.
save the taxpayers some money. Maybe he should be asking for that amount then in his highway block grant article, if that's what it's gonna be used for. Maybe he should ask the voters for another $100,000. I mean, he's basically asked the same amount every year for that article.
I believe the highway director's plan for a sizable portion of that is to save sections of road before they get to the point where
They
they
need to be
need to be totally reclaimed.
That's correct.
So if we didn't have that money, we would not be able to do that.
Short another mile of road.
If that money didn't get dropped in our lap, I guess we'd be like, oh my, what are we gonna do?
Drive around, Dick. Gee.
I do drive around, Tom. You know, there's a truck that's needed down there and you got the money to pay for it. So, I mean, I think I'd pay for it. One thing on the backhoe. Thanks. The backhoe last year on the warrant article, it said that vehicle was gonna be used for the transfer station. I heard tonight that that article, is gonna be, this year's article will be the same as last year's, except the number's gonna change.
Oh, not on that one, no, not on that one.
Oh.
No, that, we did something different, and when he went to CIP, it was not a replacement. It was, they're gonna keep the old one to pound down the cans still.
So this is a
And
new
the new one is, there's been a arrangement made, because we went and leased one, rented one, whatever you wanna call it. So 80% of the rental from April to December is gonna be applied toward the purchase, because what we have is brand new. What we got right off the bat was brand new.
So this is an additional vehicle.
It's going to, yeah, it's not a replacement.
This is, we're adding this to this is being added to the fleet.
It's not a replacement, yes.
And there is no offsetting revenue for that back.
The offsetting revenue is the rental payments that we've made.
No, nothing from a capital
Oh,
reserve
okay.
fund or anything being used to offset that?
No, because we're using it to offset the charge. It's all the same.
So the backhoe that's down at the transfer station, when that dies, and it could die next week, it could die in 2 years, it's gonna be, you're gonna want to replace that, is that right? Because it was a multi-purpose vehicle, right? I mean, that backhoe was used by, matter of fact, last year, that backhoe was a transfer station vehicle. And it's been carried under the transfer station, even in the CIP. So, what are you saying that this is a new vehicle and we will have to replace the backhoe down at the transfer station? Because that backhoe was used both at the transfer station and the highway department.
It
However,
hasn't been used in the highway department for a long time. because
but that was the intent.
It's not roadworthy.
Well, that was the intent, though. That was the intent. So that backhoe that's down there, it will have to be, in the transfer station, will be replaced. The new backhoe is not gonna be used at the transfer station, is that what you're telling me? Because that's basically what you said.
Basically, that's what we're saying.
That's the first time I heard that.
Until it dies,
First time I heard that. What do you mean until it dies?
until the old one dies.
Until the old one dies? When the old one dies?
When the old one dies.
Not until, but when the old one dies,
Right.
then you're gonna ask for a new piece of equipment.
That's not my understanding.
That's what?
That's not my understanding.
It'll go back to a shared use and all.
Right.
Likelihood, but
The
that's,
the DPW director said it's not gonna be replaced if it dies.
It's not going
Right.
to be
Right.
replaced.
Right.
Then why don't you purchase it through the transfer station and use offsetting funds that's in that capital reserve?
because we wanna hold on to those for other things. For example, if a trailer goes, one of the trash trailers or a recycling trailer.
The skid
or
steer's on its
something
last
like
leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, skid steer's on its last leg.
that. Yeah, I mean, then that money will be available in the capital reserve fund to place it in an emergency situation, replace it.
So you're not gonna use any money to offset any of those purchases?
We are using all of the 30 or 35
$36,000, but you're gonna use $35,000 for
to offset the truck
the truck.
cost.
So we're using 30.
We're using 30.
30 of the
So that
36.
It was
the warrant-
35.
The warrant article will
Last year.
ask for,
This year on the CIP, it's $35,000.
Right, the board changed it to 30.
But you're not gonna use any of the money available through the state to do that? To lower that cost and to eliminate the cost?
It wasn't our intention.
That's nice. Just one final thing. Park and Rec was in here tonight, and I know there were some questions, and I'm disappointed you decided to go ahead with it. Being nice and everything, I guess, thing to do. But in reading through the minutes of Park and Rec and through the CIP, Park and Rec actually went to the CIP with a request for the boat ramp. They went to CIP for a request for the boat ramp. And there was no further discussion in the minutes of the CIP. You were a member of the Selectmen's representative. Was that ever discussed? Was that discussed and a decision made not to move that forward?
I didn't recall it, but
Well, according to the minutes, there was no discussion to not move that, to delete it. And I thought the purpose of the CIP subcommittee was to accept the request and then make a determination as to whether they were going to recommend it or not. But it still would show up on the list of things that were submitted. According to the minutes of Park and Rec, October 10th, Karen got a call from Jack Dearborn saying that this is incorrect, but I'll read it the way it was written in the minutes. A call from Jack Dearborn, the pavilion passed the Board of Selectmen. Hadn't at that time, I don't think. But the boat ramp is dead in the water. Now, I don't know who decided that. I didn't see anything in any of the minutes from the CIP that would indicate there was any discussion. I don't know if they should be in a position to make that determination. They can say it's not something we want to recommend for whatever reason, but for them just to apparently, according to the documentation that's available, to say it's not going forward. And I think Karen kind of tonight indicated that as well. But, that was on the warrant last year, and it was for safety issues. And, they switched gears and went to the pavilion, and apparently, the subcommittee to the planning board said, according to the minutes, it's dead in the water. We're not going to pursue it. So it didn't make it. You look at the CIP list of items that were recommended or submitted, it's not on that list. And it should have been on the list with the dollar amount that they had either submitted last year or a revised amount. But it didn't even make it through that subcommittee.
We haven't had any discussion, as you know, at this board level on the boat ramp this year. So what you're saying, I have no knowledge of one way or the other.
Well, we do have a selectman's representative on that committee.
I don't recall talking about it.
I know they went and submitted it, which they always do at the early stages. They go in and this is what we'd like. It might be kind of non-committal, could be some questions, but for a decision for it to not go forward, usually would require some kind of broader recommendation from the CIP, which I couldn't find. And a $300,000 difference between the proposed budget, the default budget, and last year's budget, approved budget, it's a big increase. And almost half of that's coming from the police department. And we know why it's coming from the police department. Because we deferred hiring for 6 months to save the money that the voters said we wanted to cut from the budget. Now you're going to pay the piper. $300,000 increase in the default budget is unacceptable. Increases that reflect wages and contractual increases are fine. $50,000 from the highway, approximately the same amount from the fire department. And I understand you consolidated things and put some things that took certain things out of individual departments and put it into another into the selectman's office.
There's another piece to that, Dick, that when we worked with the finance committee last year, we decided with the finance committee to not include the full amount for new officers because we knew that we wouldn't have them on board until probably at least 6 months into the year. I don't know whether it was 6 months or 3 months, but I think it was like a half year salary we agreed not to include because we knew we wouldn't have the officers. But with the understanding that they would be in the budget this year and that would be reflected in the default budget. So, that was the case.
Well, that's the kind of, unfortunately,
That's one of the reasons that.
I understand, but it's maybe for people that don't have a level of detailed knowledge about the budgeting process. But what you've done is you've basically satisfied the requirements that the voters placed upon you in terms of how much you were able to spend in the operating budget. But what you didn't do, you haven't carried that forward to the following year. And you know that last year's operating budget, plus or minus, becomes this year's default budget. But it doesn't. Not this year, because you're adding the 6 months that you deferred back into this, because you haven't, you're obligated to do that. But I heard that the finance administrator asked, say something tonight, that she's got to check with the DRA on regarding the police department when it comes to the default. Now, is there an issue that you can't carry that over and make it a full year's worth of salaries, or what?
I didn't have that, I heard that tonight, I didn't have a conversation with him today. So I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it's a bit deceptive. I understand what you did and why you did it, but, coming into the following year, when people vote in a budget, they think that that's gonna be the beginning of next year's budgeting process for the default number. That isn't. You increased it by over $100,000 just for the salaries of the two police
But
officers.
that was, we knew that. We knew that this discussion would happen when we made that proposal to the finance committee in order to come to some agreement on the operating budget last year.
Well, I'm glad the finance committee agreed to that. That they carry it forward to the following year and say, oh yeah, well, you can increase it by another $100,000, that's fine. Because you've really inflated that default budget number by that amount. And what is there, $13,000, $14,000 difference between the proposed budget and the default budget? And that's over $300,000 increase from last year? Hey, as Ricky would say, you got some splaining to do, Lucy. Well, everybody over 60 maybe got that one. I think that includes you, Tom.
Over 60, a bit.
So I think that's gonna be a contentious issue.
I'm sure. Thank you.
Dick, I do have the Parks and Rec, they were looking for $36,000.
For the vote rep.
Yeah.
It seemed like a reasonable amount of money, and, I've always been an advocate not to just squirrel money away into a cap reserve fund every year, but there are some examples in this year that would kind of justify it. They're doing it with the bridge. And I'm assuming it's gonna be on the, it's on the warrant this year. And they're hoping the voters are gonna approve it again, because it's a goal 2 or 3 years from now to replace it. The Park and Rec should be doing the same. They really need some guidance or something, and I have the minutes from the Park and Rec, and I don't know, they did $36,000 to cover the planning and feasibility. And they said they also wanted to submit a request for a pavilion or shade areas at Bowman Field. Again, it's like putting lipstick on a pig down there, because there's some really serious issues down there with parking that I think should be continuously addressed. And those are safety issues like Selectman Hippler mentioned, including the boat ramp. And why don't they institute a kind of a fee, additional fee surcharge for people who are putting their boat in to help defray the cost over time? Are there any grants out there that are available? I just don't think it's been pursued enough, and I think showing up on the warrant again this year, yeah, it's going to be tough for people to accept that. And it kind of reflects back on the selectmen in terms of what they think is important and what isn't important. If you think that's the most important thing down at Bowden Field, then you need to go down there when they're having a football game. It's really terrible. And they don't even, the soccer field too, part of that change down there was to increase the size of the soccer field to make it a legitimate soccer field so you could have tournaments. And those types of tournaments, including football, they bring revenue into the town. I know it's not a lot. We don't have maybe at a couple of sandwich shops in town, they might see an increase in their weekend, during that weekend when they're having soccer tournaments. But that's not even a regulation-sized soccer field. And we got the land, I think we have purchased the land to make it bigger. I don't understand that direction. I understand what she said, and I understand the reason why, but boy, somebody got to put a bigger effort into getting the word out. But I don't think there was any discussion on the CIP, especially if you don't recall it.
Well, I have that, I took down my notes that we got this. But I don't have anything in here that it was not approved. But I don't recall. Do we have minutes from the CIP meeting?
I looked through the minutes. I didn't see anything in there that indicated
It
it
was
was.
on 9/19.
The only thing they have on the last set of minutes, I think, was they have a chart that shows the items and next to the boat ramp was $0. So, I don't know, but again, there was no discussion. Not that there wasn't, because maybe the minutes don't necessarily reflect everything that was said. That's-
I bet YouTube's there.
Huh?
YouTube would be there. We turned the camera on.
I'll watch it.
I'm just saying, I think they would be there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Thanks, I probably should have done that before. Never mind.
Are we good?
Sorry.
Frank Campana again. Actually, it was just this last go-around, the last sentence is about YouTube. You're meeting with the Finance Committee tomorrow night. If this room isn't scheduled, is there a proposal or prospect that you guys will meet, the selectmen will meet down here to have it televised?
I would love that, but I don't think you're gonna see it happen because
Okay.
we've met with a lot of resistance from the Finance Committee for televising the meetings.
Right, and I get that, but I didn't know, just try to pursue that avenue again. Okay, thanks.
If I may, just quickly, there's been a volunteer that's been recording them, and I believe the cable committee has been posting the videos on YouTube. So it may not be televised live, but with all luck, I'm sure it'll be posted on YouTube following.
Yeah. Of course, not everybody's on camera.
True. But their voices are heard.
It'd be much better here.
It would
I
be.
agree.
Yeah, I don't see why we just don't do it as on a regular basis.
Well, we've met with the Finance Committee here in the past. Joint meeting. Night, thanks.
Night. Stay warm.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we here?
Is this yours?
Correspondence or other business? Anybody?
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Thought you were done with it.
Selectman Osborne wanted to bring up the fact that the DPW guys were out. I believe they were out Thanksgiving too, weren't they? I believe they had snow on Thanksgiving too. They were out on.
I don't know.
Could have been.
Anyways,
I believe they were.
Definitely on Christmas.
they missed the holidays with their families to give it up for the town, and he proposed giving them each a $50 gift certificate to a restaurant in town or of their choice as a consensus. Where he can't be here tonight, figured I'd bring it up for him. I know Hopkinton just did it. And the board voted to encumber $10,000 of the 2017 budget. Of course, we're a little past that right now, but it was a $50 gift card as an extra thank you for the job they did on the
That's
Christmas
two different
weekend
things,
storms.
though, I think.
Right.
Yeah, the 10,000.
The 10,000 wasn't for gift cards.
That's for Operation Santa Claus. I take that back. Yes. I'm like $50, 10,000. That doesn't sound right, but.
Big item.
Right, that's a big item, that's a big difference. No, but it was $50 gift card as an extra thank you for the jobs they did at the weekend storms and the holiday storms. And just didn't know if that was something that the board would entertain.
What would that be for us? How many people do we have down there? I think we should include the director since he was out plowing.
Yeah, he was in a truck.
Sorry.
I think
And
Matt might
in
have.
the, in the transfer station
Wasn't
attendant.
Matt?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, your new one wasn't,
No,
because you just hired him.
right.
No, he already gave it to Beth. I was thinking that too.
Yeah, it's already gone.
Oh, it's just.
Hang on one second. 15 is 750. But I just gotta double check, oh, you know
So
what?
if we even went up to 1,000,
Do you have that payroll email?
I do.
I just wanna make sure. I think I swooped it away.
Get it, I have it.
Yeah, see, I swooped mine away.
Total earnings, 1228. Are they all right?
Because I do know Matt has been, and Benji noted that in the
Noted that,
discussion.
maybe.
Yeah.
4, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12,
and Matt would make 13.
13.
So there's 13 plus, 13 including Matt, including Benji,
Mm-hmm.
$650. $650.
Why don't we make a motion for up to 700 so that we.
In case we miss somebody.
We want-
Yeah, I know, not
Right.
to exceed,
Mhm.
Is that all right with you, Rick?
Yeah, yeah. What's that?
Sorry.
You got an email coming
Text message.
in?
I'm not gonna say it has somebody's name on it.
Right.
Go ahead, take your motion.
So move.
700?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So- Be of a local restaurant of their choice.
Yeah.
So we're not biased toward one establishment.
Right. Group consensus.
Okay.
all those in
Aye.
Wow.
favor? You know, they
That's it later. No?
Yeah.
Any
No, you
copies
taking-
to the other?
Just I'll ask the question, is that gonna come out of 17s? The $700
do that?
or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
if we can.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that, then yes,
Um,
please.
There's another issue on the warrant that we gotta go back to, for the new business. Or it's whole business really, or, no, the, police car. We talked about, taking those funds from the, undesignated fund balance.
It's on there.
Is it on there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was last time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that was quick and easy.
Well, seeing that you brought that up, as a finance committee member, can I make a comment on that? Seeing how you kind of opened the door.
Sure.
This is for replacement of vehicles, shouldn't that specify that on the article? Because it just says purchase of two fully equipped, it doesn't specify to replace vehicles.
Yeah. I
Just a
think
thought.
that's-
That should be worded in there,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
As we could see tonight's discussion
Yep.
during non-public, that's the.
I just wasn't sure when the final wording was gonna be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Soon.
yeah,
Thank you, John.
thanks.
Now, did we have replacement on the?
No, we didn't last year.
Under the truck?
Yeah.
I think that's in purchase also.
No, it says utilized for the purpose of replacing an existing.
Replacing or existing?
You can add that purpose statement too. Because you can just say for the purchase of two fully equipped police cruisers to replace, I can come up with some order. I just wrote replace next to it, so we can do the replace.
Dan, do you have anything else tonight?
Replace.
Rick, anything else? I move we adjourn. Is that okay with you guys?
Did you have,
You did have or didn't have?
What?
Anything else?
I don't, but I thought we were gonna go back in, or are we gonna wait for full board?
Well, I think we all, it was for those two documents that we signed,
Yes.
so it's on it.
Okay. Second for that?
We adjourned? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're thinking about it.
Well, I know there's like, we look at each other,
Sure,
but.
sure. No, just, and we discussed the town minister's contract and evaluation in non-public, and we thought we were gonna have to come back to it, but, we
Changing your mind?
squeezed in what we could, and the rest
Yeah.
will take care of the rest of
In the extra 15 we were at.
I guess,
We still not adjourned? I'll cross it off if we're not adjourned.
Just
TV's
change the
not off
time.
yet.
I guess I'd like to go into non-public under 91A, have A and C.
Okay. Before we adjourn.
Second.
All in
Jan.
favor?
Aye. Aye. Hey, John.